Hi, this is Professor Ruth Maas, and today is May 16th, and we're going over some of the things for the course MAE 508, Teaching Subject Matter with Technology. So I'll go over a few slides here and about the course. And course description. Basically, this course description, this is a lot of words on here, and I'm not going to read them, but I'm basically going to just summarize that we're going to learn how to best teach your particular subject matter with technology in whatever way that you use it. So one of the things I need you to do is to let me know how I can help you with teaching technology in your particular subject matter. My background is I've taught all grades from kindergarten through 12th and also at the university level. And some of my particular focuses have been science and math and computer science. And so if you have any particular subject matter that you'd like to, need help with or whatever, you need to let me know so I can help you with those things. Okay. The course learning outcomes are to promote technology proficiency with students and colleagues. And technology proficiency means something different for every different person. It depends how you use technology in your role. Assess technological needs of the learners at your school and district. And we're going to do that so that you can start thinking about if you did have the funds to purchase other technology devices, what would they be? Also, how would you best create technology-supported learning environments? And how to integrate appropriate technological resources into your curriculum and into your practice. And also to kind of share what other people have done, other teachers have done, and their effectiveness. Okay, here's a little outline about the course grades and assignment breakdown. You can just look that over yourself. One thing I wanted to let you know is that since we do have webinars here, the discussions are 20%, webinars are 20%, and so that is a difference that was not indicated in the syllabus, and I wanted to make sure you knew that. If you cannot attend the webinars live, then just watch it at your leisure and submit a 100-word summary about that webinar to me via email, and I'll give you full credit for those webinars. Deadlines. I just want to let you know that I'm a very understanding teacher. I know that deadlines in this class are sometimes hard to meet because you're a teacher and you have things that have to be done, like grades, teacher conferences, you have staff meetings, all those kinds of things that come up. So if you are in a pinch and need a couple extra days to do an assignment, please let me know, and I usually grant that, and there's no penalty for that. But if you don't contact me and I don't hear from you or whatever and the paper is late, then I will need to drop your letter grade. So just be a responsible student and let me know what's going on, okay? The textbook for this course is Foundations of Educational Technology, which is a really good book about integrating technology into your curriculum. And if you don't have a copy, let me know if you're having trouble securing a copy or whatever. So if that's the case, I can maybe forward you the sections that we're reading for that week. Chapter 1 is about defining educational technology. What is educational technology? Well, first we're going to look at what technology actually is. And technology is the knowledge to create. Technology is not just computers and devices and things like that. Technology is actually the practical application of knowledge for a purpose. So there's things that you could consider that are technology that are not even electronic, that are practical applications of knowledge for a purpose. So one thing you need to know that as technology changes, what people do with technology changes, and technology changes what people do and what they can do. And affordance is a word that's mentioned in the textbook quite a bit, And that means what technology makes possible for us to do. So it gives us affordance to do different things, such as communicate with email or whatever it be. Now, with this chapter, I want to share a thought that might inspire you here from Albert Einstein. It's imagination without knowledge may create beautiful things, and knowledge without imagination can create only perfect ones. So that gave me a thought that made me think a lot about the role of imagination in creating things. And we have to remember that as teachers and as students, to give those students the freedom to use their imagination to create things. And that is a real key to teaching. What is education? Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And that's from Nelson Mandela. Education needs to be purposeful. You're learning something for a certain reason, to achieve a certain goal, to be able to do a certain task or whatever it is. And learning, like technology, involves change. So sometimes when we teach something or we learn something, the ways that we learn things are evolving. And I would say that in the last 10 years, YouTube has really changed the way we learn. And even with me, I used to read patterns of how to crochet things, and it would have little symbols like 2DB or for 2 double crochet stitches and then a single stitch and whatever it is, all written out. And now I don't even read those instructions anymore. It's too tedious. So I actually watch YouTube videos on how to do different crochet stitches. And I think that's the same with a lot of things. Even my son, who's into cars and repairing cars, he uses YouTube to watch videos on how things are done. And so that has evolved from, going from, one point in our society where we had, we learned trades from our family or from whatever, passed on from generation to generation. Then the book learning was part of that. And now we're up to learning things on the computer via YouTube and those kinds of things. Education involves a broad range of learning activities. So education involves learning, instruction, and also performance. After you've learned something, can you do it? And that's not a new theory in education today, but it's an emphasized area today where we do performance exams for standardized tests instead of just multiple choice. And I think that's very important that we apply our learning to actually figuring something out or doing something. So what is educational technology? We learned about technology and education. Technology that can help someone learn something is educational technology. And that's how Spector puts it in a nutshell. You could word that the way you want to, but I think that technology, if it's a device or if it's a mechanism or whatever it is, if it improves someone's learning or helps somebody learn something, then it's educational technology. And another quote from the book is, educational technology involves the disciplined application of knowledge for the purpose of improving learning. So that's the whole purpose. The purpose of educational technology is to improve learning, instruction, and performance. So that's important to note. I want to go over key assignment number 1, even though it's not due until Sunday. It's due Sunday of week 2, and this is already week 2. You're going to choose an article from the link that is in the on the course website, learningandleadingdigital.com, and you're going to critique about one particular technology that's listed there. Not all of them, just choose one. And discuss in your paper, what are some of the positive or negative aspects about that technology? What are the benefits or the drawbacks that you see with that particular technology? Do you agree or disagree with the author? and give reasons for your response. And what do you think is missing from the article? Any recommendations you would offer? And some of the articles on certain different types of technology might not include who is to use the technology or how much it costs or whatever it is. And I know that in education, when we're working with budgets, we really need to know how much these things cost, or we don't want to ask our administrator for it. It's like, well, you can't have $1 million robot in your classroom. We need to pay for other things, but that's just an extreme example here. So you were supposed to read Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of Spectre, and Chapter 2 is Values, Foundations, and a Framework. And I just wanted to pull some of the key items out of that chapter. I started this slide with a quote from Plato, who, as you know, lived a long, long time ago. And he said, "Everything changes and nothing remains still." And isn't that ironic that quote actually still pertains today in 2018? So here's some things that Spectre pointed out in his in Chapter 2. Just as practitioners of medical technology are and should be guided by ethical principles, practitioners of educational technology are and should be guided by ethical principles. So that's something that has come up as technology has been used in the classroom. I remember when I first used technology in the classroom, we had little iPods, and there were really no rules until we realized that the kids weren't using the apps we wanted them to use. They were loading apps onto the iPods and playing games. And then we had to start making rules. And so there should be guidelines and rules and things when you do use technology. And it seems like the longer I've used technology in my classroom, the more rules that seem to come up. But basically, after all these rules and regulations come up, I think that the one thing that teachers miss about teaching about technology is to teach the kids that they need to have their own ethics. They need to have a moral sense of what's right and what's wrong, and to teach them that's really the overall rule of everything. Another thing is contributing to the digital divide wrong. And the digital divide refers to some students have computers at home and some students do not. And that causes the digital divide. So if you're a teacher and you say, okay, go home and on your computer, do this, for your homework or whatever, and some kids don't have a computer, you're contributing to the digital divide. Those kids that don't have computers are getting farther and farther behind. Another point is it ethical to create disadvantages for one population while creating advantages for another population? And will educational technology dramatically improve learning and instruction? Several studies have been done that certain types of technology or certain apps or whatever really, in the long run, do not improve learning. And so why are we using those apps or those techniques to help our students? So that's another thing to think about. I just want to touch base a little bit on key assignment number 2 so you can be thinking about it. This isn't due until the Sunday of week 4, but it's a research paper. And if you could just click on that link on the course website and pick a topic from the 10 hottest topics in educational technology, then you could have that in your mind. And as you see articles or hear about certain things about that type of technology, you'll be able to jot those down and have some substance to your paper. Or if you have questions about that particular technology, you can shoot me an email and we can discuss that. Okay. I'll just skip this. This is these are details for that key assignment. Now, the last key assignment I want to just touch base with you just briefly is to create a proposal for your leadership team, which would be your principal, vice principal, whoever it is, your department team, to purchase new technology. Say maybe you hear something in this class and you go, wow, it'd be great if all my kids had tablets because blah, blah, blah. We learned that we could do this and that, whatever. And I'd like you to write up a proposal with the price of the tablets, what you would do with them, back up with some research that they're effective or whatever it be. And if you want, you can actually make this a real grant proposal. And that's one thing that I did. And when I was a teacher, I did on the side is I wrote grants for our schools and got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of technology equipment for the students just by writing grants and proposing certain ideas on how to use technology in the classroom. So that's going to be your last key assignment there. And those are just kind of details about that. Okay, I'm going to, let's see if I can do this. Go to week 2 slides. I used to give a webinar every week, and I don't do that anymore. I do it week 2, 4, 6, and 8. And that's just so, it gives a little more punch to each webinar, and then you have a break every other week, which is good. We already went over the course textbook. And Chapter 3 Inspector is what is learning and how is it different from performance? There's one thing that, it used to be that teachers would teach things and teach facts and teach this and teach that. And we really didn't have a lot of time to actually do what was taught, except for in certain classes like music, where if we had a choir class, we would actually sing after they taught us how to sing correctly or whatever. And art, we'd be taught art principles and they would actually, make something. So they're finding now that actually students learn best if, instead of just being tested on multiple choice test or whatever, that they can take the knowledge that they've learned and actually do something with it, to solve a problem, to make something, to do a project, whatever it is. And that's a real important point that Spector points out. Here's a quote from Confucius that I thought was really good. It says, "He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger." And so if you think about it, if you learn something, just like memorizing, I remember memorizing the capitals of the United States, and I didn't really put that knowledge to use except for if I memorized all 50, I got a star on a chart or something. But maybe I should have been taught more like, okay, why is a certain place the capital? And how did that come to be? And why is that city important in that state? Then I would have probably remembered it more, Then it says, "He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger." Because you can think of a lot of things, but if you don't learn from your mistakes or learn from what you know, then you're in great danger. So anyway, that's just a thought. Spector in his textbook says learning is a change in one's ability, attitudes, beliefs, knowledge, or skills. So as you learn more and as your horizon expands and your mind is broadened, then your attitudes will change because you'll have a better understanding of other people's points of view, other people's beliefs, and you'll be able to increase your knowledge and increase your skills. So think about when you teach your students, what are the outcomes of learning? What is the difference between intentional and incidental learning? I'll give you one example of that. I was using an app on the iPods and teaching the kids about time change. And they were actually converting, okay, if it's, 2 o'clock in California, what time is it in New York? If it's, and then we went internationally. If it's, 12 noon in Colorado, what time is it in Japan? And so that was intentional learning. I was trying to get them to see the difference of time, just by doing this And they were really kind of in awe, like, wow, when it's 2 o'clock here in the afternoon, it's the middle of the night somewhere else. But then somebody found out that in India, there's some places in India where the time change is in half-hour increments. So say it was noon here, it could be 2:30 in India, not 2 o'clock, 2:30. And so I said to him, that looks wrong. Let me see your app, And so that was incidental learning. It was just by chance that we all learned together, because I didn't even know it, that there's parts of India that instead of breaking it up in hour increments for the time change over the country, they have increments in half hours, in 30-minute increments. So that was incidentally learning. It was really fun, and I think all my kids in class remember that because it was like such an aha moment. And those are good. When you come across those aha moments, grasp onto them and learn, with them. The last thing that I want to pull out of that chapter is measuring performance can help learners and teachers develop a sense of learning. So when you measure progress, and actually when kids can actually graph their progress and see an increase, that is it builds their self-esteem so much. So that's very, very good. What are performance discrepancies? Performance discrepancies are if somebody's doing something and then they're not doing as well as they could, then why aren't they doing it right? And I think that often employers look at that. They say, okay, we have these people who are trying to sell something, or like say trying to sell cars or whatever it is, and how come this certain group is selling a lot of cars and this other group isn't? And they say, what is the performance discrepancies? And so this guy, this author, Madger and Peter Pipe, wrote this series of books on performance problems. And I read all 4 books. It was one of the courses I took in my master's degree program. And it was very enlightening as to finding out why people don't perform to their optimum. And we related it to education, why students don't perform to their optimum abilities. And sometimes it's because they don't have the tools, they don't have the knowledge. Sometimes it's because they don't have the motivation. So those are some things that were discussed in this book, which has actually influenced my teaching all throughout the years. So here are some things that cause workers in the workplace to not perform like they should. Like I said, do they lack the knowledge? Do they lack the feedback? Do they not know that they're doing something wrong? Are they not motivated? Are they unclear of what's expected? And sometimes I think students are unclear and they don't ask questions. Is it the environment in the classroom, or what is it? And it says, if potential, change personnel. That's, if you're in a work situation and maybe there's a combination of people that just don't click, that could be the problem too for performance. Those are all things to consider when teaching students and wondering, how come everyone's not getting an A? How come everyone's not understanding this? And so try to go back on these suggestions as to why students might not be able to get something. And maybe it's your teaching. Maybe you're not explaining something clearly. And so for that reason, I always give a pre and post survey to my students to see how they, if they learned from my class, what I could have been done better, what I could have done worse. The United States University does that, and we do a post evaluation for every course that you take, and that's very helpful to me as an instructor to know how I can best, serve you and teach you what you want to know. Okay, so that's it for our slides here. So I'll go back to my picture here, and I can talk with you a little bit. So I'd like to thank you for listening to this first webinar, and this is week 2, and our next one will be on week 4. And if you have any questions about the key assignment number 2, you can email me, you can text me. The phone number that I have given you is a text number too, so you can text me if you'd like, or email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So I'm here to help, and I'm so glad that you've decided to take this course. Many of the students, my former students, have really been able to, is enlightened them to either write a grant to get more technology or to use more innovative ways to integrate technology to engage their students in learning. Okay? So thank you so much, and I will see you week 4. Bye-bye now.